Hi, it's Tony again, and we're back on the bench. And this evening, we're going old school again with another conventional classic, the Penn Monofil number 26 in the green side plate edition, which is quite rare. But as you can see, it's a very pretty reel. This comes out of my personal collection. This is not a reel that I use at all anymore. I only use this maybe once or twice, actually, since I bought it many years back. But we're going to be doing a service on this reel this evening. Take apart, cleaning, and as you can see, it's already fairly clean, but we're going to be replacing a couple of parts. We're actually going to swap out the metal spool with the nice green plastic spool. Obviously, this reel is more of a showpiece reel at this point. The only problem that I can say that it does have, unfortunately, is this typical hairline crack that a lot of these old monofils have just over time, which is unfortunate because it does actually work its way up. You can see here up the side of the side plate. But outside of that, it's a functional reel. It doesn't have any problems. So yeah, we're going to get into it and do the take apart. But the Monofil series was introduced by Penn in the late 50s, and they only lasted until the early 70s. And the 26 model was like the intermediate size. The 25 was the wider spool edition of that series, and then the 27 was the more narrow spool. And the 27 is almost identical, I would say, to a 180 Baymaster. And the 25, I'd say, is almost identical to a Beachmaster, a 155 Beachmaster. But the 26 is a little bit in between the 25 and the 27, and it's probably more comparable, I guess you could say, to a Beachmaster 160, I suppose. So just a little bit of reference there. But these are great reels, and if you have one and it's in good condition, I would recommend trying to keep it in good condition because they are becoming quite rare and harder to come by. But I like using the 26. I have two of them myself, and I've always liked using the 26 mainly for slough and river fishing. And I find that it's a great size for that. I most recently did my other 26 with the full take apart and cleaning and whatnot, and it too was also in good shape. Just a different color. That reel had the darker maroon brown color. And you see a lot more of those than you do these greens. These greens are only on the 26. The 25s and 27s do not come in the green color. And the green is exceptionally hard to find. And Penn made another reel that was green, but they called it a moss green, and it was their level wind series of monofils, the 9, the 109, and the 209 in the earlier generations of those reels. And soon, hopefully, I'll be doing videos on those as well. So, as you can see, this is relatively clean, but it is dry, and so we're going to be getting into all that. Also note that two of these screws that came off of the lower section here for the reel seat, these are shorter screws than these other four. So just make a note of that. But we're going to pull our spool off. This is a really nice clean metal spool. But we're going to wrap that up in a box here and put that away and just save it for a rainy day or whatever. But just looking in here, I mean, everything is pretty clean, but we're going to take our Q-tip here and we're going to do the usual thing. Now, one thing that I think I will do here is I will replace this non-handle side bearing just because this one's probably a little worn out. Even though I do not intend to use this, I want it to look and function the best that it can, and I've got some extra bearings here sitting around, so... But this reel will definitely be more of a showpiece mantle type reel at this point. And hopefully someday it might actually increase in value, which I can find pretty easy to believe. I have seen a lot of these off and on eBay, but the majority of them are usually not in very good shape. So Just going to take a microfiber towel here to the seat, but or the stand, but it's pretty shiny. This reel was not quite in this good a shape when I acquired it originally, and I do believe I changed out some of these frame posts and a couple of other little small things, but you know, it's got some good shine to it. There's no rust or corrosion damage, and so that's all a very, very good thing. So we'll put in our new bearing right now and get that out of the way. We'll reuse this old spring though here. These springs I normally find don't really wear that much. They're pretty thick, so there's really no need to swap that out typically on these old conventionals. But the bearing is definitely worth swapping out at a certain point with some reels. Definitely doesn't have to always be done, but in this case I'm doing it just because this one's shinier than the other one, and it'll just kind of help it turn a little smoother if I'm ever looking at it or displaying it to somebody. Put that off to the side, and now we'll get into this here, and we'll just take our blue grease and we'll do a little dab of blue grease in here, and also on our clicker, just to give that a little bit of attention. It looks good. And then we're also going to do our oil beads here on our threads, which some people have probably seen me do in all my other videos. That's what I like to do. I don't like to snap off heads on anything. And we got our new plastic spool. I found this not long ago on eBay, and it's obviously in good shape, and I was able to get it for a reasonable price. So we're gonna apply our blue grease here, a little bit on the shaft on this end here, and it'll be good to go. Stick that in like so, and that whole side of the reel is pretty much done. If there was more attention needed with the rings and the chrome pieces and the screws and stuff, I would be disassembling all of it, but this particular reel does not require these things, so I'll just put that off to the side here. And now we're going to get into the business end here on this side. And the one thing about the Monofil series, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of these parts and components, I mentioned the 25 and the 155 are very similar, but the gear set and the bridge assembly and the eccentric assembly in all the Monofils are the same as the 155 Beachmaster. And that also goes the same for the Baymaster as well, the 180 Baymaster. So a lot of these parts are interchangeable with these models. And the Baymaster and the Beachmaster had a much longer run than the Monofil series did. But Penn introduced the Monofil series originally to incorporate a conventional reel that was accepting to the smaller diameter monofilament lines that were being introduced in the late 50s by DuPont mostly. And at that time, braided lines were still very heavily used, and they wanted to have a solution in the conventional reels, and so that's when they started coming up with the monofils. And to be honest, a lot of it I think had to do with the name and not necessarily the construction of the reel. But they are very lightweight reels, especially if you have the plastic spools, so that's good. So once you take those 4 screws out that I just removed, you can take out your bridge assembly. And all this kind of falls apart on you here, as you can see, but we're going to go through it step by step so you can see it all. But everything here is relatively clean, as it should be. I have had this reel apart once before. This would be the second time, I believe. So we're just going to do some light cleaning work here. Take a wire brush to our pinion gear, since it's right here in front of us, and just kind of clean this up best that we can. but it really doesn't look that bad. But yeah, the good thing about working on these models, the Monofil series, is that you can still get a lot of these parts pretty easily for the internals, the rings, the frame posts. You're pretty much just paying for these side plates that say Monofil on them, and they're either green or gray or lipstick red color for the 27 or whatever. But that's pretty much what you're buying if you're in the market for these. But all these other parts you can still get. So that's just one little thing to make a note of. And I'm just kind of looking around in here. We're going to pull out our pinion yoke. And I'm just going to kind of gently clean these things off. But you know, there's no major cleaning needed here, which really makes life easy when you're working on these reels. When you get to the point where you wish that you bought an ultrasonic cleaner, that's when you know it's pretty heavy. Now there is some built up old grease down here on the bottom here, as you can see, so we're definitely going to remove some of that. I think the last time I actually did have this reel apart, I seem to recall that it was rather dirty in here, but I was just kind of doing a light cleaning on it because I actually wanted to take it out fishing right away. But unfortunately, now that it has that hairline crack, I would be not so eager to use it, because I'd hate to see the whole side plate crack up like that. So you know, there's still some baked grease down there. So what I'm probably going to do is probably just hit that with a little bit of penetrating oil, a little bit of WD-40, and we'll try to clean that out. Loosen it up a little bit. It's helping a little bit. I call that baked, basically, when the grease gets like that. And it happens. Sometimes I find that you can just kind of gently take a little flat-bladed screwdriver and you can just kind of roll it around in there, and sometimes that'll kind of help loosen that up a little bit. But pretty typical of these reels to get that kind of stuff going on. It's not unusual at all. So, okay, so that's what everything looks like in there. Now, we will take out the handle side bearing as well, and we'll replace that. But that's what it looks like on that side there. And as you can see, there's these indents, you know, these star indents from that thing being torqued on there, basically. But that's just par for the course with these models anyway. So we'll swap that bearing out like so. And I'm also noticing here too that the grease point right here, it actually looks like it's a little pushed in, a little more so than it should be. It's a minor note, but there is some old dried up grease that's kind of caught up in here now as a result of that, whereas if it was sticking out more, not so recessed, that would probably not be that way. See if I can try to push it out ever so gently, but that's probably about as good as it's going to get. Okay, so we'll put our bearing in place here, like so. We're not going to over tighten this because you can see what happens when that does get over tightened over time. So I'm just going to gently turn this with my fingers, and we're just going to call it a day right there. We're not going to do anything else with it because we don't want to compromise that crack any further than it is. Okay, so we've got all of our parts and pieces here laid out, and they're all pretty clean. Now the only other thing we have is our drag stack, and as you can see, there's some old grease that's kind of baked on the bridge here. So we're gonna clean that up the best that we can. And then we're also going to, as part of our standard service, we're actually going to remove the sleeve from the bridge, and so that we can lubricate the shaft, the bridge shaft, and take care of that. And I'm going to do that off camera here, but I'll just note right here for you, there's a pin that you need to push out, and you normally need to do it with the help of like a little nail punch. And so I'm just going to do that here in the vise off camera. I'll show it to you what it looks like when we get it out. Yeah, you just take a small little hammer of some kind, little ball peen hammer, works fine, and just tap that pin out real gently. So I'll show you what this looks like here. So you can see the pin is sticking out now, and I can normally take that out with a pair of needle nose, so we'll try that here. But yeah, this is an area that gets overlooked a lot, I think, by people that are servicing their own reels, and it's definitely something that you should consider looking at, because you want this to be lubricated, and this is actually, you know, it's got some oil on it, but it's not it's relatively dry. But we want it to be clean. And what I also will do here typically is I'll take some steel wool, some fine steel wool, and just rub that on there, because you really want these shafts and components to be as smooth as they can possibly be. And then I'll also take a Q-tip to the inside of our sleeve here, bridge sleeve, and just clean out all those contaminants and things that just don't belong in there. Okay, so that all looks pretty good. So I've done both oil and grease on these shafts. I like using both of them. I'm going to do the blue grease in this case for this particular one. I find that the oil is good for some of the smaller models sometimes. But either way, they're both appropriate for that application, I think. So put that back on there and let it work its way in, and then we're going to put our pin back in. I'm going to attempt to do that here on camera if I can. And you really just need to give it a little tap with the hammer until it goes flush, and that's what it should look like. So it should all be good there. And now all we have left is our drag stack. And so we've got a red, or should be red, fiber washer. It might be a black one if it's maybe a newer one, but this is probably an older one, which is fine. And we'll just put that back into place right now. But we've got our spring washer, our metal washer. I'm just going to take these off in the order that they're coming off here, so you can see them one by one. Now this actually has old leather washers in it, so we probably should change those out. But being that we'll see how this goes taking the rest of these out. If they start to break up on me like this one is probably about to do, then we're definitely going to change them out. Yeah, these washers are pretty old, and I mean they're definitely intact, but they're definitely old. So we're going to clean them up and we're going to see what they look like. But you got the metal washer, and then the last fiber washer, or leather washer you could say. A lot of the time what happens with these old leather washers is they get kind of baked to the other washers, all the metal ones. But we're just going to clean up this main gear here, and we're going to kind of inspect this main gear. Looks clean, looks good, no rust, so that's all good there. So we're just going to take our metal brush here to the teeth Just clean out any dirt, sand, anything that might be hiding in there, old grease. Take care of that. That all looks good, no problem. Okay, so we're going to put our main gear back into position. We're going to clean off these washers here and make a determination. You can see this is actually a different color on this side than it is on that side. It's actually quite rare to find these old leather washers in this kind of shape. Yeah, that one is probably starting to give a little bit of a break right there. It's kind of hard to tell. But overall, these are not that bad. This one doesn't have the other color on the other side. It's black on both sides. But yeah, these leather washers are actually in very, very good shape, surprisingly enough. So what I'm probably going to do here, if I was servicing this reel for somebody else, I would be swapping these out with fresh carbon fiber HT100 style washers like these. But being that this one is for me and I don't really intend to use it, again, it's just going to be for looks, and these washers are all in really good shape. I'm probably just going to leave this like this, and if someday I decide I do want to take it out for a spin, I might consider just changing out these washers. So we'll put these back in accordingly. Now, being that these are leather washers, I'm not going to apply our Cal's universal drag grease to this. But we'll just put the washers back in the way that they were meant to be. Got our keyed washer. Leather washer. Metal washer. And spring washer. So that's our drag stack. Real clean. And should be fully operational if in the event the reel was getting used. I have no intentions of selling this reel or anything, so it's just pretty to look at. I would put this on a display somewhere or something, or on a mantle myself. So we're going to apply our blue grease to our main gear teeth, as you can see. Don't want to overdo it, but you want enough of it on there. But being that this reel has those green side plates, definitely makes it kind of like a classic hot rod car kind of deal, because they're just rare, and you don't see a lot of them out there anymore. So, okay, so we've got that lubed up, ready to go. I'm just gonna hit the rest of this with the Q-tip on the inside here, get any other excess stuff out that doesn't belong. It all looks pretty good in there, so we're gonna hit this up on our eccentric. Some blue grease here, just a little bit underneath. And then we'll hit up our bearing, our handle side bearing. Just a little bit more in there, like so. And we're ready to start piecing this back together. So we've got 2 springs, our eccentric yoke springs, and then we've got our pinion yoke springs, I'm sorry, and then we got our pinion gear. We're just going to load that up with a little bit of blue grease. Put that back into place, and we're just going to spread just a little bit more on there. Like so. And then we've got our Eccentric Jack. So there's a couple of different things that we're doing here. As you can see, we need to have that in position. We need to put the jack over the yoke, and then we need to line it up with our eccentric lever roller here, basically. And this can be a little hard sometimes, but that's basically what that should look like. That's real simple. Okay. And now we're ready to install our bridge with our gear assembly. And I find that turning it upside down like this is the easiest way to do it. And then push down on the pinion gear, roll around your bridge ever so slightly. And unfortunately, it might be a little difficult to see, but on the inside of this has been compromised right here. There's a chunk missing from inside the frame of the plate here. I'm not sure how that happened. I think the reel just came that way, probably from somebody trying to work the spring out of there at one point or something. And this dog spring was surprisingly in pretty good shape. I think I'm probably just going to put that one back in. It had a really good, strong sounding dog click to it. So we're going to apply our beads of oil on all these 4 screws here. Note that the fully threaded ones go in the bottom 2 holes of the bridge assembly. And we're going to start this one here so that we can place our dog in place, like so. And then we're ready to put our dog spring in position. And it should look something like that. Okay. And you can start rolling back. Once you hear that click, that's usually a good sign. Take your screwdriver and thread a little bit more on that screw, on that lower screw. You don't have to tighten it up completely, but just enough, and then you can start turning your handle on the bridge sleeve there, and it sounds good. So we're just going to do the same. We're going to put all these other screws back in place and get the rest of it reassembled. Sometimes you do need to make sure that that first screw is loose enough to get the rest of these started. It has to be just right with all the mechanics. So this one's being a little bit of a pain. That's actually way off. So yeah, I gotta back this one off a little bit here so we can move this bridge around a little bit more. There we go. But yeah, if you're a collector and you're in the market for one of these, check out eBay. They're out there. They might not be cheap. If you can find one that's in good shape, that's great. Ultimately, if the plates are intact, that's really the biggest thing, and the plastic spool. Because like I said earlier, you can get all these other parts through mysticparts.com or through a parts reel or whatever. But they are out there, they're available, but the plates are the hard things to come by. Now, no, don't torque anything here too. Just snug these screws up ever so slightly, and you're good there. Okay, so that's turning real freely and good. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go back to our blue grease, and we're just going to hit up a little bit of blue grease in this area here, just to let that work its way in those metal moving parts. And that's all good, I think. Okay, just gonna shine up our ring here. I do believe these are new rings that I put on these plates. They're pretty shiny for the most part. Okay, so we're ready to put this back into position on the rest of the reel. This is where you start to feel like you've actually accomplished something to a degree. And before I do that, I'm just going to double check. Yeah, we did place a little bit of oil on those holes, which I like to do. And we'll start putting our screws back into place. And again here, don't start torquing down anything or tightening up anything too much. Get all the screws started a few turns, like 2 or 3 turns, and then you can start snugging them all up one by one. And I like to go kind of crisscross back and forth, and so that there's kind of a balanced torque, so to speak, even though we're not torquing, but it's a balanced tightening, I guess you could call it, so that the spool and the plates are meshing properly. And I just do that for all conventional reels, just in general. But as you can see, these are not really difficult reels to work on, and they'll definitely last a long time if you take care of them. And I highly recommend the reels that you use that are not in a display case to make sure that you service them regularly and keep them wrapped up in a good cloth or towel or cloth bag of some kind. And a trick I like to do sometimes is spray a little microfiber towel with some WD-40 and wrap it up in that and put it in a box, and then that keeps all the humidity, so to speak, it helps from the corrosion building up on a reel. So, okay. So we'll get these pieces out here. You can see we've got little parts trays here, and the star wheel doesn't want to come out for some reason because we've still got some old loose oil in there. But yeah, these pieces are all really clean, so there's no need to shine these things up or anything like that. But we'll apply a little bead of our oil here for the star wheel. And we're just going to tighten that up a little bit so we can seat down the handle. Now note, this is not the original handle for this reel. This was added on later. And this is a handle that was a common color torpedo handle for a lot of the models that probably came after this model, but it's the handle that I have for the reel at the moment. So put that into place, and we'll do a little bead of oil here for our handle nut. Place that on there. And we got to get this tightened up just right, lined up with our hole here. It should be good. Another little bead of oil on that hole, for that screw, that tiny little screw. Okay. And there we have it. So we're going to try this out and see how this works. And so it's spinning real nice. We've got a good strong click on there. That's great. And we're also going to try out our drag, and we're going to snug up our drag a little bit and try that out. And that's definitely working. So check our free spool here. That's good. So there you have it. That is the Penn Monofil number 26 green edition, all serviced up and ready to be displayed, look at, and enjoy. So Thanks for watching. This is Tony with Back on the Bench. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more, please subscribe. And we'll see you next time.